here. We've had some great content to kick off the morning for our final day of Startup Boston Week 2024. I hope many of you have been able to make some great connections, meet some great folks, and learn some fantastic things over the week. First and foremost, I want to thank Suffolk University for hosting. This is an incredible space in the heart of the city. We have some alums here and some current students, so thank you to Suffolk for not only being the host of Startup Boston Week 2024, but also our host last year, and for giving us a beautiful location and quite a vibrant community to share this with. Today, we have some fantastic folks presenting for our Tale of Two Departments, Who Owns Customer Expansion. And as part of Startup Boston Week, their goal and our goal all together is to connect the entire greater Boston, New England startup community. So not only do we have CS folks, but a couple folks chatting here in the room before we got kicked off. We see that we have founders, we have consultants, we have visionaries, we have ICs, we have everybody in the room. We have everybody in the room all week, and that's the special part of Startup Boston Week. We really bring folks all together. And the team that creates Startup Boston Week is primarily volunteer. So the folks that you see walking around, the folks that you see here today, they're giving their time and their energy. So please give them a thank you if you see them. And thank you all for attending. This wouldn't be possible without the commitment and the enthusiasm from all of you. So without any further ado, thank you. Thank you to our panelists for being here, and I will let them introduce themselves.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Marcella Bertini. I'm in customer success for the past 10 years. I have been in sales in my past life. I went from the bad guy to the good guy. Just kidding. Just to get started, you know. I'm very excited to be here. I'm going to be actually a moderator, but I'll chime in here and there.
Yes, you definitely should. Christopher Harris, or go by Chris. So I've been in sales for like 16 years now. I've primarily lived in like Boston, New York City, and Silicon Valley. So I've worked for startups, really small startups, to managing complex sales teams for some of the biggest companies in the world, like Comcast. And so everything sales and growth and that's part of my ethos in my adult life, right? I'm also, as I mentioned earlier, a coach and mentor at Harvard Business School and their entrepreneurship program. And I founded Boston Founders Forum with Eleni. And what we do is we bring in really great founders, or maybe a fantastic lecturer from Harvard. We have a unique one coming from Stanford soon. And we interview these folks. Could be active founders, could be a founder that sold their business for $1 billion or whatnot. They all have very unique stories. So we interview those people in front of a community of founders, right? And the folks who support founders and startups and whatnot. And so we get to work very closely with a lot of them. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
Great. Lenny Vorvis. And I've been in customer-facing roles for the last 20 years. So I started my career in sales, and I like to joke that I went from the dark side to the light.
Oh my
side.
God,
You
girl.
see, there's a theme here.
So I've been I've been a BDR inside sales, and then transitioned into partner success back when it wasn't even called partner success. And then I somehow through LinkedIn landed my first role as a customer success manager, and then worked at a variety of startups as an individual contributor and then as a leader. I'm currently a fractional VP of customer success for a company called Coachum. They are a coaching enablement platform for sales teams. And so I do consulting for other startups as well. And I coach and mentor women who are in revenue facing roles.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, good.
So Tale of Two Departments, Who Owns Customer Expansion? It's actually a topic we're all very passionate about, and it's very hot at the moment. Also might be valuable to note that I started back at LogMeIn, which is now GoTo, and then I moved into the startup space because I wanted to have that feeling of having a different, completely atmosphere of what we can build and not build. And this is really, really hot. My role is actually changing as we speak to what we're calling now customer success growth. Having that mentality and really going forward thinking in that way. And we're very much at the time where we're having these discussions internally at Secure Code Warrior, where I currently work. So the way we're going to do this, just to briefly outline the form of the debate, we're going to have 30 minutes for the debate, and then we're doing, you guys hearing me okay? I'm hearing some okay. So we're going to do 15 minutes for what we're calling the 4 argument for sales, and then 15 minutes for customer success. And then hopefully we'll get to a consensus or valuable insight. And then we're going to open for questions. So write down your questions so we can be useful and helpful and actually have you guys walk out with some pretty good idea of where you stand or just valuable information from both sides. So to get started, we're going to do our first argument as customer expansion should be led by the sales team. And a very simple question, but I think it's very powerful. Chris, why should customer expansion be led by sales team? Can you provide examples where the sales department has successfully driven expansion?
Absolutely. So I think first off, you had mentioned it. Everyone's selling, right? Like I'm of the attitude that everyone has to have their sales hat on, right? Engineer, sales, support, whatever it means, especially if you're customer facing, you should always be selling. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. But the reason I'm in favor of sales being responsible for this, and there are very unique scenarios where I think it's a team effort, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But for the purposes of this question, I'm going to assume that the salespeople in this question have been trained well, or at least are trained under myself. So that's how I'm going to answer it. Okay. And the reason I think it's so important is because there are a few different types of folks who sell. There are like the challenger sale. Some of you may have read this book. It's really interesting. They studied thousands and thousands of sales reps from many, many different industries, all different industries, right? And what they found is sales reps fall into a few different categories. I'll be very short with it. There's like the relationship builder, the yes woman, man or woman, right? The person who says yes all the time, the lone wolf and the challenger. And what they found is the yes person and the relationship builder perform the worst. They perform the worst because it's about respectfully pushing back. Maybe you get feedback from a customer and it's not necessarily the direction you want to go. Maybe it's, yeah, we have budget coming up in Q4 and it's Q1, right? To be able to respectfully push, challenge, work your way up to different stakeholders, not just settle and be, yeah, no problem, we're best friends, we'll wait till Q4. That ability to respectfully push and maybe get that deal in, say, Q2 or get some sort of revenue as a result from it, even if it doesn't happen, be able to set yourself up for higher executives in that organization, working and navigating it through that challenge mentality, not taking that, that no for an answer in that scenario. That's really important, right? And I think that's important. And it's incredibly important for CS to be involved with the customer because that's the trust aspect. Because let's be honest, when sales comes in, the gloves go up a little bit, right? They're in defense mode. Okay, they're going to try to sell something. So it's definitely a team effort. And again, we'll get kind of to that at the end. But the ability to challenge, to navigate those complex scenarios, you can't be their trusted best friend in those scenarios, right? And so that's why I think sales, it's important that sales kind of runs with that.
Eleni, do you have any counter argument to that? And what do you think are the potential pitfalls of having the sales team solely responsible for customer expansion?
Yeah, so I think I definitely have some reasons why I think that's not the ideal model. While salespeople are trained on different sales methodologies, I'm going to assume that the customer success organization also has access to resources. I personally have been trained under the Sandler methodology. So I think if a CS team is trained appropriately, they have the opportunity because they are working with the customer, they are building a relationship. But in our day-to-day world, we are having to collaborate, negotiate and push back because as we all know, if we live in CS, customers want features, certain features. They want their bug fixed over somebody else. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And a lot of those customers are challenging us day in and day out. And the best customer success people know how to do discovery and ask questions to try to understand why the customer was wanting the thing that they want. Is this really business critical, or are they thinking the button needs to be green or the left panel needs to move to the right? So we are in a position in our day-to-day to be able to have difficult conversations. And because we work with the customer post-sales to get them to success, we have the opportunity to uncover expansion and growth opportunities, or as we're working with them on adoption, to be able to build a path in which they can adopt new features, and that may require them to pay additional money. So because we're working with them, I find that customers get put off if we then introduce them to somebody else, because let's be honest, the person that sold the deal isn't always the person you would be working with if you had to pass it back over to sales. So I think customers are very comfortable in having a conversation with their customer success manager or their customer success team when it comes to expansion and growth, because it's not about hard selling, it's about identifying the problem they're trying to solve and if our solution can solve that problem. It's really about the right fit instead of pushing it back to sales for them to have the conversation. Because also sales is busy and it takes a lot of effort to focus on new customer, new logo acquisition. And so that detracts from, I think, their ability to focus on new sales, which is why individuals are hired. But I will say it does depend on where you are in your growth as a startup on when it makes sense to have customer success own expansion.
Yeah. Let's talk about exactly getting from what you said about sales being busy. And then we can talk about also incentives, right? What do you do with your time? It's so important. And most of the time it's because you're not just enabled by the company, but you're also being incentivized to do so. So how will the sales team, Chris, will be incentivized to focus on expansions when they typically have quotas for actually closing new opportunities, new business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm also vice president of sales for a publicly traded cybersecurity company, and I'm responsible for North America. And that question is something we're going through right now. So it's interesting because the size of the company matters. Exactly what you said. So I'm gonna answer this in like the scenario, your scenario, and we'll kind of play that same similar side. We have both CS and sales are present. So first off, the compensation is the most important part, right? Because sales is grueling, especially as Eleni said, the new business side, that's hard. There's a lot of no's, right? And little psychological tip here. Document every no you get until you get a yes, and then keep doing it, and then figure out how many no's it takes to get to a yes, and then get excited to go get no's, because you know the mean of whatever that number is, they're going to get to that yes. Little side note. But I think the compensation is so important. New business. So I've been in scenarios where the compensation for new business was equal for the growth. And as a sales rep, that's incredible because the CS person is working it. They already have a relationship with you. It's easier, right? But if I'm the CEO of that company, I don't think that makes total sense, right? It shouldn't, because you're giving away a lot of money. So in a perfect world, what I would think would make most sense is you have your really unique incentives for new logos, right? Now, if you're a very big strategic company and you are working with very large strategic accounts, upsells might account for a measurable percentage of your revenue. And so therefore, unique incentives need to be applied to that. But new business, or let's call it measurable, significant new revenue growth, needs to have the most powerful incentives for the sales reps. What I think is unique is there should also be something for current customer growth, right? That there has to be something there. Maybe it's not as unique as new business, but what I'm thinking is the right way to do this, and I think Eleni's the perfect person to have this conversation. Maybe there's that growth compensation incentive that's shared by CS and the sales rep. That might be unique. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
Maybe if we're doing most of the work. How do you feel about that, Eleni? Are we landing the deal on a silver platter to sales and kindly asking for a share of the money?
I think it does depend on who does the work, and the compensation model really does matter. So on the customer success perspective, if you are going to be owning, let's say, the expansion, you need to make sure that the compensation model makes sense. You can do a group quota, so the customer success managers all work toward a number and there's a group mentality, or you can have an individual number. If you are partnering with sales, you do have to be very careful in how you build that compensation model, because if the models are not aligned, Then you may have a salesperson coming in to help you with a renewal, and they're trying to pitch, say, a multi-year deal, for example, and you're trying to figure out, like, why are they trying to go for this longer deal with terms maybe that might not be as desirable to a customer as the deal that you've put into place. And that actually happened to me. I was working with a sales rep that was trying to push this multi-year deal while I was having another plan in mind, and we were just butting heads, and I couldn't figure it out until finally I thought to myself, let me ask him why he's wanting to do this. And he said to me, well, we're being compensated multi-year. I get X percentage more on my commission plan if I do this, if I do that, and I'm going to stick around and watch what the customer does, because if they also grow within the first year, I get something additional. And so understanding how the sales team is compensated and vice versa then helps you to align if you're going to share the model.
And that's up to the leaders of the organization. So you bring up a fantastic point. The leaders of the organization need to think of this holistically. And what they should do is bring in somewhat senior management of each of those organizations to represent those teams, right? To represent those teams, to understand what that why is, and then sort of build that compensation together.
Yeah. Otherwise, I almost feel like it's a lose-lose. Like the customer loses in the end, that we're not looking for what's more beneficial to them. We're not catering anything to their experience or their needs. And then internally, it's also a lose of the relationship between sales and CS. We typically say that CS is best friends with product. We must be. But if we're not best friends with sale or really, really close partners, and you're just like not sure what the swimming lane is, that's a lot of internal conflict that could be avoided. I think that's the worst scenario, to have CS and sales competing inside the company and seeing each other as enemies instead of coming together. Eleni, how does my focusing on a sales-driven expansion impact long-term customer satisfaction and even retention?
That's a great question. If sales is focusing on the expansion, I mean, it really depends on the conversations that they're having, because sales, as much as I think salespeople would like to try to know what's going on with the customer, like the day ins and day outs, what you're focusing on for adoption, what the challenges are, they just don't have enough time. So that's not a knock on sales. They're hired to do a specific thing. So if they're having conversations and making plans and maybe setting expectations that don't align with then how we deliver as a customer success team. I mean, we all know how many times has a deal been sold and something has been promised, not because salespeople are just horrible individuals. They're trying to hit a number and they believe that something can be done, but then it has to get passed over and then you have to reset expectations. So I think the expectation setting piece, if customer success is not involved, that could then impact how that customer works with us moving forward. Because if there are promises that are made, or the customer feels that they can just go to sales when they don't get what they want from customer success, that creates misalignment, and that puts I think the health of that customer at risk. And then you're creating ways that they can just go around you. I've even seen this happen where the CEO or founder is promising certain things and they're involved in the expansion and growth. We haven't even talked about that. What happens when the founder wants to lead with that, because the customer success team is still growing. And so alignment is very key. No matter who is having the conversation and who is owning that number, you all have to agree on a set of just rules of engagement. And if the customer is coming back and asking for something, how do you work through that decision-making process?
Yeah, I want to make a comment on that because it's a fantastic point.
Not allowed. Sorry, go ahead.
Expectation setting is the most important thing, right? Happiness is based on expectations. So that's the most important thing. But look, as you grow your business, you'll have to change processes and whatnot as you grow, and things change, of course. But I think you make a great point, Eleni, where you have to, from the top down, you have to have a process, you have to have goals, and you have to all mutually agree on that, right? And you got to be making sure that it all comes up. There might be a bunch of different things, but as long as they all get to that same point of growth, whatever the founder or C-level person sets, that's most important. But you all have to be working to the same goal. And like when things get off track like that, like you were talking about, Marcella, you have friction, the message isn't right, and it just impacts the customer experience. Because at the end of the day, the CS person needs to be the closest trusted person to the customer, right? And so they're at the front, they're sort of in the front there. But yeah, I just wanted to underline that. I think that's a great point.
So to your point of having that clarity, how do you believe that the sales team or the sales department measure success in customer expansion? Like what should be or what are for you the most important metrics?
Okay, great question. So first off, I'll get to the most important KPI metric, but one that I don't think people focus on enough. That's not directly correlated. Well, it's definitely correlated to revenue, but it's not exactly revenue. I want to put in KPIs, how like based on getting as high in the organization as you can, right? Like if we have a customer, one of the goals should be, and you have to work with CS and the sales rep, whoever the top stakeholder is in that organization, get to them. If
And
you get to them,
executives to get to
executives,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
That is like, I think that always needs to be top of mind. That will help in many ways. But what's the most important KPI for me? It's new annual recurring revenue, right? Like new ACV. I want to see, at the end of the day, I also think expanding the contract term is really important, but new reoccurring revenue, ACV, that's the most important for me.
Okay, I'm actually glad you answered that. This is perfect. We did not rehearse any of this, but this is just perfect to what I want Eleni to talk about it. What do you believe are the challenges? What challenges actually arise when the sales teams are primarily focused on short-term revenue? So if new AVC is the most important thing, what is the challenge of that when it comes to CS?
I mean, the challenge of it is that they're so focused on that short-term number or what they're going to get paid out, right? And we have to remember that for a majority of sales compensation models, a lot of that is put into their commission. Base can be very low. So salespeople are attracted to a sales role because they are hunters and they want to go after that money. So if there's, say, a spiff in place or there's a short-term goal that we need to meet, they're going to do all that they can to hit that goal. And sometimes that means making a promise or giving something to the customer that they may not necessarily use, right? We see a lot of examples, and I think the CS folks in the rooms have experienced that, where they get that new feature or we expand their capacity because it's a capacity-based model. And then the customer success team has to focus on how are we going to get them to adopt this, to do the throughput while also getting an ROI. So it does then put more pressure on the team. Sometimes some of those short-term deals require, maybe there's integrations and things that need to be done. So there's pressure on the professional services team or the implementation team or product team. And we're not always charging the customer for those fees. So we may waive fees. We may negotiate from a position of feeling and maybe looking a little bit desperate. The customer knows that, the procurement team knows that, and they're thinking, well, they're trying to get this in for the quarter. We're going to negotiate as hard as we can. And if anybody has ever negotiated against procurement, a lot of CS people and sales people have, right? My customers were procurement when I worked at Fair Market. So imagine that day in and day out, you have to work with the procurement contacts. They're very good at their job and they get compensated on getting a discount or getting as much as they can in that contract. So I think you just create this perfect storm of all of these things happening. And then the company and all departments have to scramble to figure out how are we going to make this happen? Because at the end of the day, the executive on the customer side, the CFO who's writing that check, is expecting to see a return.
Totally.
And if it's a multi-year deal, we have time to make it happen. But many customers, especially nowadays, are very hesitant to close multi-year deals because of businesses up and down. They want to stick to a one-year deal. And if you're spending most of that time implementing or integrating because they've purchased something new, then you're running up against the clock. You have to start talking about the renewal 6 months before, right? And the value. And so
and we'll sometimes
pressure.
And what we'll do, right? What we'll do, and it's not good, is we then we create these financial compelling events, and you're selling yourself short. So, you're negotiating against yourself. So maybe you're trying to get this new 100K deal in, but in reality, and you're trying to get it within a quarter, but in reality, if you had allowed CS to do their thing and then work with them, maybe 6 months later, that deal is actually 150, 175K. Right. So we can come in and we can apply pressure because we want to get these numbers down, and you can negotiate, you can give too low of a deal, too low of a price, and that hurts the lifetime value of the customer, right?
Yeah, there's another thing I just thought of.
But we never do that. My team never does that. We are too.
And I'm getting a little bit of like PTSD thinking about this, is sales focusing on the short-term revenue.
Yeah.
You also run the risk of pissing off the customer because you present them this deal that you think is amazing, because someone at the company internally, founders never do this, or the head of sales never does this, right? Where they say, but look at their earnings, they're doing so well, and they should be spending X, Y, and Z on our product or service. And they present something to the customer that is just not the right fit. They look at the price tag, they get sticker shock, and then they get upset. So you could take a customer who is in a healthy condition, they're successful in seeing some sort of value, and the relationship goes south because you've done something that is just, it's not in the best interest of that customer or for us as a company. So I've seen that happen.
Me too.
Yeah.
I saw it happen with one of the biggest streaming companies in the world, the big red one. Actually, I can say it, Netflix. And that's what happened. And the founder and the head of sales in this scenario went with a massive deal. It turns out the other competition who were trying to get into that account, all of them, it was like the numbers were 3 times higher. So it really offended them. And they said, you're using this to you're trying to use us to do this so you can build out your own product and your own team. This is sketchy.
Sounds like you're not being fair.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they lost it. They lost that customer. So
yeah,
great point.
There's always that risk.
Yeah.
We're going to switch the arguments. So we're going to take you a little bit out of the hot seat. Maybe not. There's a reason why you're in the middle.
Yeah.
So we'll do the second argument, which is exactly the opposite. Customer success teams are better suited for customer expansion. And I'll start with the same question I started for Chris, for you, Eleni. Why are customer success teams better suited for leading the customer expansion?
So I mentioned a couple of them when I did my rebuttal, but so I don't repeat myself, I think one of the big things is we work with the customer day in and out, and we build the relationship. So once sales has closed a deal and we do the handoff and we kick off the implementation with the customer, we do talk to them about what their goals are, right? There's a variety of information that gets passed over in the sales process that we validate during the kickoff call when we meet with executive stakeholders to understand, how is this going to help their business, right? Because at the end of the day, if what we're doing doesn't help a company make money, save money, be more efficient, do more with less people, they're not going to sign the check for the renewal. So we kick off that relationship really building a customer success plan, and sales does a great job of identifying ways in which the customer will grow. In many cases, they want to pilot in one business unit, or they want to do 1 or 2 use cases, but there's the opportunity to grow over time. So because we are building that customer success plan with them, that is our opportunity to talk about growth and to break it out into digestible bites of information for the customer. Like, what are we going to do quarterly? One, to make sure that there's change management in place, that the customer is adopting the software, but how do you grow with us over time? And because we're building that customer success plan, it naturally leads us to have the conversation with all of the relevant stakeholders to be able to work towards that path of expansion. So it's just a natural fit. We're not introducing a salesperson to come back into the mix randomly.
Mm-hmm.
We're building that relationship and working with them, as this term has become, overused, as their trusted advisor. We have to come up with something new.
Yeah.
I think, maybe we brainstorm that at the end of this session, but they're the person, our customers, if you've built that relationship and that trust, and you have to earn it, they will come to you with news and information. I've had great relationships with my customers in which there is a change in the reporting structure, or they're having a budget impact. They have picked up the phone and called me to let me know. Or on the opposite side, we have this opportunity. There is this extra budget that we need to spend, or we heard about this thing you're trying to do because one of your team members, our CSM told us about this information, and you as the leader, we want to let you know we're really excited about it. We want to beta it, or we want to be part of the process, and we are interested in growing with you. So I think it just naturally lends itself to have that conversation on the CS side, but you absolutely have to equip your team with how to ask questions in the right way, how to have those conversations, not to just say, hey, we've got this, this shiny, bright thing that's going on right here. Here's going to be the price tag, and just to go in with the sell. you have to identify when is the right time and ask questions about who might be the right people to bring in,
Right.
and also leverage your resources. So it's not to say the CSM is having that conversation all by themselves, or it's just the CS department. We bring in product, we bring in whomever else to be able to make that happen. So I think it just is a natural evolution. I also think the state of SaaS companies today, also there is that transition that's just happening. So whether you want to or not, more CS teams are just owning expansion revenue, or they were focused on adoption. Now they own renewal and expansion. It's just, we're going with companies are needing to be more efficient. CS needs to tie themselves to revenue also to be able to justify the growth of the department, the investment in resources. And there's just not enough time for the salespeople to focus on both and to be able to do both successfully. So we now are moving towards a model where I keep hearing on LinkedIn or talking to CS leaders that they're now saying, oh my God, we have commercial responsibility. We have to own it. And how do we do it? And we can talk about that, I think probably a little bit later on in the session, is how do you enable the team to do that? There's just that natural progression is happening just based on what's going on with the economy, and companies are needing to just be able to do more.
Also not uncommon. It actually happened to me pretty recently where the relationship is so close that I have a customer telling me if they're looking internally for competitors and giving me a heads up and telling me, if you arm me with X, Y, and Z, I can make sure. So basically, your customer is your champion internally. And they're like, we're obligated to do this due diligence and look into competitors, but I want to stick with you guys. So help me help you. And that's when like the relationship is really closed. What you talked about equipping your teams, I have a question for you, Chris, on that. What do you think about it, or how do you actually address the concern that CS teams may lack the necessary sales skills to drive expansion?
Yeah, so this is like a perfect question, because what Eleni just said, that's perfect. Like, that is perfect. I'm putting like my CRO or CEO hat on. That's exactly how it should be. Right. So if you guys need that, like, talk to Eleni, because that's like the exact perfect model. I think if it's not done like that, you'll have problems. So if we're going to allow CS to do this, it's literally, there has to be everything Eleni just said. There has to be a plan. I love like true account plans and growth plans with the customer. People don't do this enough. Build something for the customer, and then you fit yourself into there through value. But build a relic with this customer based on their goals. If they're a big company, look at their quarterly earnings report. Put that at the top. Build that plan. And I think CS is in a fantastic position to do that, because they can be a secret weapon. So now I'm kind of turning the tide's turning a little bit on this, right? Because CS can kind of be, and might be a bad metaphor, but a Trojan horse in a way, right? But they're not going in there to kill everyone. They're going in there to save them. Let's just say that. But if you can equip them with the proper training, with the proper, like, how to ask questions, right? If you can equip them with that and they stick to it, then that is the best model. And I don't have concerns.
So you're saying we're double agents, we're not the bad guys.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You're double agents. And so if they are not equipped, what happens, remember what I said in the beginning, they fall into the relationship builder category. They fall into the yes man or yes woman, right? And when you are in that situation, you just are waiting. You have no control, right? And budget cycles come every year. So you might be waiting a year. You have no control. So you want to be in that challenger mentality where you are respected, right? But you're bringing them value. You want them, when they leave the conversation, to think, wow, I hadn't thought of that before. Or the best example is they would have paid for that time, right? And so if you can enable CS like that, the same way sales did to start, then I think it's perfect. And if it's not, then there can be challenges.
Yeah. It feels like we're moving into a cross-department approach being the best approach. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about that. Before we open for questions, I wanted to get into that scenario, which I actually agree it would be the best for everyone. What tools or strategies do both of you use to ensure effective collaboration between sales and CS?
Sure. And I love that you made the Trojan horse example. I'm just going to
Yeah,
say that
same.
because I'm 100% Greek and I am 50% Spartan. So my dad is from Sparta.
Yeah.
And just another fun fact for anybody who is a fan of the Greek mythology and the history. So Helen of Troy, her name is actually Eleni, which is my name. So growing up, my best friend's dad would call me like Helen of Troy. So they say, "Oh, de Eleni," which means beautiful Eleni. So that was funny. We didn't even plan that. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Tools for collaboration. I think let's start with the leadership teams. I think leadership needs to be aligned, and
Tools and strategies.
they need to be meeting on a regular basis. So having a meeting in which the head of sales, the head of CS, even the head of product and other stakeholders are talking about what is going on with the customer base, right? Sharing things like success stories, use cases, product is going to need to do some interviews, et cetera, kind of talking about the state of affairs with customers, what is their health, and how can different departments kind of lean in. So being able to have those meetings set up on a regular basis allows for transparent and open and honest conversations between the sales leaders. I think also for collaboration, understanding the compensation models. Are those aligned? How are they built? So that there aren't any surprises when the teams are going to work with each other. And I think sometimes leaders feel like they shouldn't be sharing that information, but it allows you to understand what drives that other person, your sales counterpart, and then your CS counterpart. I think it's important information to know. If you're hiding it, then I would be a little bit suspicious about, well, what kind of model and what kind of example are you setting for your team, and how much are you pushing them to hit their targets at all costs? I think collaboration tools are also very helpful so that, for example, sales has questions about what's going on with some of our large customers. They may be getting involved because we're collaborating on a larger deal. Slack gives you the opportunity to share information. Maybe there's a channel for each customer in which you're highlighting those wins, those use cases. A customer's hit 2 times, 3 times, 4 times ROI, and sharing that information proactively. There's also customer success platforms out there where CS teams live in, and there's information that then can be automatically sent to sales leaders to be able to know what's going on with the customers as well, right? Having that one source of truth in which people can go in and find that information.
Yep.
And just documenting it, I think, is really important because everybody's time is precious. And when you work in CS, you not only work for your customers, but you have internal customers, and the amount of questions and requests that the team gets in a given day can be very overwhelming. And in many times you feel like you're regurgitating information. So everyone getting trained on where to go to find that information. And I think even to flip it on what does CS need from sales, like even pitch decks, what's going on with competitors so that we can stay on top of things, and then being in meetings together with our team so that they can share information and share wins. The best companies I've worked at have had those ongoing meetings to be able to collaborate, and then encouraging sales and CS if there is, CSMs are working with 1 or 2 AEs, or there's a certain pod model. I've always encouraged my team members to go out and just build those relationships organically. Like, don't wait for a formal introduction or these meetings that happen on a biweekly or monthly basis. Go out and get to know that person on a personal level. Find out what are they interested in, similar to what you do when you're building relationships with your customers or when you start at a company and you're new. I'm very big on that because then when you do need to work together, you have an understanding of what that person is really good at, what they enjoy. You can just be really transparent and share, and then you can have a lot of success in working together on expansion.
Yeah, I think she nailed it. So some more, so everything Eleni said, yes. And then I guess some more like tactical ones. I think what's really important is, first off, what does your customer base look like? Maybe you have a couple big clients. Maybe you have some small clients, right? So you want to categorize what your customer base is. And you also want to make sure, and I know this is about like CS and customers, but you also want to make sure that's in line with the ICP where you're going to market with, right? But let's just focus on the customers right now. So when you have those categories aligned, you definitely want, whether it's the pod structure or reoccurring meetings, where there is maybe a monthly one with the CRO or the CEO or founder, where they are going through those top accounts and going through the progress, and the rep or the CS person are together giving the updates on that. And you do that every month, and you need to see progress. And so then you trickle down. So then maybe you might have weekly meetings with the CS person and the rep, and maybe the head of sales or something like that too, right? And there needs to be a strategy in place for based on what your goals are. Maybe it's, okay, here are these 5 accounts that has potential growth. These 5 accounts have potential growth. What is the actual plan for each of them? All right. And then what are the key milestones that need to be met to get there? Let's document that, right? And let's hold ourselves accountable and then work together on the execution of getting to that, like the nitty gritty details. And when you have it in a plan and you have like a pod structure and you have reoccurring meetings, and Lenny, you do this all the time in BFF, and you hold each other accountable and you work that way, it works. And the plan is a living, breathing document. It can change, but you need to have alignment from the top, as Eleni shared, and then tactically what you do together each week and ensuring you're having progress is going to be super key to advancing whatsoever.
I'm going to go a little bit deeper on that because you actually said the word that I was looking for, which is accountability. And this is going to be the last question coming from me, and then we'll open for questions from you guys. I have to say this has been selfishly really valuable for me because I actually came up with these questions that I wanted to hear answers from both of you. So
Good.
It's not for you guys. It was all for me, and it's been really helpful. Thank you. But how can organizations balance the shared responsibility, maintaining clear accountability? Because it's easy in a high level answer or concept, but when it gets to action time, we don't want CS people feeling like they're managing the account executives and having to tell them what to do because they're so busy, right, with many other accounts and trying to close more businesses. They're not really paying attention to existing customers as much as CS people to expand them. And then we keep having to tell account executives what to do to follow up on that plan. So we're almost like managing them in a way. The opposite could also happen. So accountability is like key. And honestly, I don't think we have like 100% nailed yet. How
hard.
can organizations balance that?
So that's hard, right? Because there is, first of all, at the very top, this is the plan. This is how we want to work together. But then like tactically, like going deeper, like how do you do that? And so there's a couple ways. First off, you have to understand the personality of, like, we're getting deep here, the rep and that CS person, right? Like be open and honest with each other about what each other's talents are and maybe what things one person might not be comfortable with doing, right? So I want to advocate for that. And based on this scenario where you're like making that plan as a group, go through scenarios and who's doing what and how we're going to do that. And you work through that. And as time progresses, you see where each of you excel and you see where the benefits are. And then that becomes your plan, right? And when you do it that way, it helps to avoid uncomfortable situations. Like this person's telling me to do this, or I don't want to do that, or the awkward when you're in the meetings and there's silence and no one's raising their hand to do something, right? So you can go the aggressive way and you can say, I'm going to do this. You do that. Are we all good? Fine. And that works. Or you can kind of ease into it this way. But the most important thing is you have to have mutually agreed execution plans that you both agree to, because the management is going to hold you accountable for those. There should never be situations where, well, I thought they were going to do it, or I thought they were going to do it, right? Have agreement all the way down to personally how each of you work together, and then hold each other accountable and kind of move forward from there.
I agree with everything Chris said. And I'll also add, there's nothing like having to update the CFO, the head of sales, the head of CS in a forecast meeting. So accountability, you're laying out that plan, you're documenting also in the CRM, you're moving it along the sales stages, right? So regardless of who is owning fully or we're working together, that's being documented, say in Salesforce, it's moving along the stages based on the sales methodology. And so in there, you have to put next steps on who is going to do what. So you have documented that.
Yeah.
And then you're going to this meeting, whether it's weekly or biweekly, in which you are having to update folks on, is this likely to close, or what is it? What's your gut, telling you, but also based on these facts that you have. So by documenting, you're holding the other person accountable, and you don't want to go in there and have no idea what your sales counterpart is doing, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So just that having those meetings in place also hold you accountable, but having that plan just to say, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that, and just the honest conversation. I mean, I've even had to say earlier on in my career as a CSM, I'm not going to be your note taker. I'm not the person that is going to follow up with the customer. That is not my job as the customer success manager. I am not your secretary. I have verbatim had to say that to sales reps.
Same.
That's why you
And
have to have
so-
these conversations earlier on,
Right.
because that's a
And-
perfect example of a sales rep just not paying attention, not doing it, and assuming.
Yes. Or
Yeah.
having sales assume, oh, renewals are so easy. They're just getting paid commission and they're doing nothing and closing renewals, until they got involved. And then they realized, oh, wait, there's a lot of things you have to juggle with the customer. So it's almost walking a day in someone's shoes and just seeing what's going on really opens your eyes, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Sometimes CS people think, oh, salespeople have it great. They go wine and dine the customer. They get paid a lot of money. How could this be so hard? You have a sales engineer, etc. Sit in on a forecast meeting when you're not responsible for commercial activity as a CSM. It is very intimidating. You have to be on the ball. Your peers are all there with you, and the CRO or the head of sales will have no problem in grilling you and making you look bad.
Oh yeah. I do that. Like I'm
That's,
I'm very strict. Why weren't these next? So last meeting we had. So first off, she went super deep. Document. Like I'm such a fan of that. You have to document stuff. It's annoying. I don't care. Right? Like go figure it. Go find an AI thing to help you do it. You have to document. And you have to memorialize things. You just do. Right? So like that is so important. And if the best organizations, sales teams, the ones I've been a part, were the ones where they had their call. Let's just say it's these 10 accounts across this CSM and these reps and on it. And this is what we said we were going to do 2 weeks ago. This is where we're at now. This is how much closer we are to this. This is the challenge. This is what the next steps are. And every week we progress. And you see it all the time. You're on those calls and there's nothing going on. And that's a problem, right? So yeah, the internal forecast component of it is a big one, because your job's at risk if you don't do that right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Well, thank you both. We're going to open the floor for questions from you guys. I encourage you guys to ask questions to these two, both related to the arguments or general best practices about customer expansion, or anything we talked about the relationship between sales and CS, or how to best approach that with customers.
Yeah. We how much time? So we got to stop a couple minutes before 11:15.
Yeah, so we have about 10, 15 minutes,
Perfect.
12 minutes or so. Please.
First of all, thank you. This was great. Thank you so much. This was incredibly insightful. So thank you for the panel. Just a quick question, and I hate to be the guy that asks this first question, but I hate
Yes.
to be, I hate to be the guy that brings up AI, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
what's your honest perspective of the future of sales and CS with the development
With
of,
AI?
with the development of AI and
Okay.
these types of technology?
I'll go first on this one because I'm very interested in this. Unfortunately for SDRs and BDRs, you're going away, right? And that's going to be owned by marketing because of all the amazing tools. Growth is going to be owned really by marketing. I think they're going away. You still, for those strategic interactions, you still need to have account executives and CSMs. Like you still need both of those. The lower level stuff is definitely going to be overcome by AI. And guys, AI is going to grow fast. It's going to expand fast. There are already AI companies out there building like agents that can actually sell and ask those types of questions, right? I mean, I'm building a sales course based on what we teach at ES 101 at Harvard. And you'd be shocked at how much I can use AI to I still have to teach it, but to get that done, and it's learning, and think about all the, it's learning. Still, to manage a complex customer and to do everything like each of you guys were saying about what's involved in the role and the interactions, and to be that challenger and to build those relationships, I think you just have to have a human there, right? But the lower level stuff, I think, is going away.
So BDR, SDR, SMB selling, maybe that could be possibly replaced.
It could. I mean, I do a talk, I do consulting too, and I do like a sales AI tech stack talk where like I've been there. The Reddit did this, where you use these series of AI tools. I mean, you know that we do that. We use that at BFF, how we got all our speakers and everything. Where we use all these AI tools to do that BDR functionality. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And just to finish the idea, I like what you said about the more complex deals, because I mean, it's hard to get CEOs to show up to a call. I'm an account executive at a tech Salesforce right now, but the point is, it's hard to have them show up to meet with a group of humans which they know. I can't imagine them showing up to just meet some random AI that's going to
It's
like
almost
they're not going to show up.
Yeah,
they might not even show up. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Yes. We'll go. I think we got her first, then you in the blue.
Yeah. So I think you guys both made really compelling arguments on each side of it. So kudos to you. I think some of the things that didn't come up would be on the CS side, you know, the lack of sales training that those teams typically get. It's like, here's a number, go get it, right? Where it's like the sales team gets hours and hours of this stuff on top of the 8 other jobs that CS teams are doing. And then I think on the sales side, you know, typically most of those teams are getting compensated less for expansion than for new business. So less of their time is going to be focused there. So my question is, what about the middle way? What about an account management function, right, that combines the best of both? I've seen it work really well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it definitely has a place. I personally have not worked at an organization where they have account managers, but I've got a lot of peers in the CS industry where that is the natural evolution, right? Or even having a renewals team, and then the CS team is focused on adoption. So I think the account manager role can definitely play in this space as well. And there's several companies that are doing that very successfully. And yes, we didn't touch upon, just to add a little bit to the training and enablement. Sales has budget for that. You just, as a CS leader, make the case or also learn that sales methodology. I've been in places where Sandler was taught on the sales side, and then we brought it over to the customer success side. We didn't do every single aspect of Sandler, but we took it, and the Sandler's actually been really great at building out the customer success side of training as well. That way you're speaking the same language, but you do need to enable your team. You can't just expect them overnight. You flip the switch and they know how to have a conversation. So it's really being an advocate for your team to make that happen.
I would do the training with everyone, all of them together. Like, I think that's such an important part. And I agree with Eleni. It's the evolutionary path is kind of that role. That's what I would love, as long as the training is there, right? If you're going to invest in training, have everyone who's customer facing being there. Maybe not customer support, but yeah, it's super important.
Yeah. And I think that happens at sales kickoff. So the other recommendation I would make, if you are, you know, a leader, a CRO, right? If you're doing your sales kickoff, the customer success team should be there, should have a seat at the table, because that's where a lot of information gets shared on the competitive landscape, training for the team, just building those relationships. So that's a really great way to bring those two teams together, to be able to have those conversations, to make friendships, right? Build those relationships, and to feel like, okay, we're operating as one entity. That typically does happen if the head of sales and the head of CS report up into the CRO. But if it doesn't, that's something, if you are a CS leader and your team is going to be having that commercial responsibility or making that transition, that you ask to have that seat at the table and that your team does get invited. It's a great way to build that camaraderie and also have a shared just language and way of approaching the customer.
I want to get you the most amount of questions possible.
Go for
it. First, I just want to make a comment. I was in a sales organization, and our motto was land, expand, conquer.
Yeah.
That was our. So, a question. What I've seen I work for a rep firm, so we had different vendors that we had, and in some organizations, the customer success were purported to sales, and some with service. And I just want you guys to comment on when they're in different locations, or where do you think is the best place to have the customer service report to?
Yeah. I think so. It depends. There's obviously a lot of variables that go into it. In my opinion, it's all about growth. So I would want CS to report into the CRO, or maybe there's a general manager. Like I like CS, sales, and product to be like this, right? That's what I like. I'd like CS to report. I like CS and sales to be together.
Yes, to be peers, not to for CS to report
Yes.
into sales if there's a CRO. The places where I've worked where that has been really well is where it's up into the CRO. I've also reported to the COO, so that's happened a couple of times. That's been interesting because then the COO is owning marketing and sales.
Wasabi does that. Marty does that.
Yeah, so there's a temporary, it really does depend on the structure, but as long as there is alignment and understanding of what each of those departments is doing and contributing, I think that's the most important thing versus where they report into, just understanding this is what CS does. CS does not mean solely support. CS is not customer service. There are many aspects of CS. And so I think that also making that clear across the organization and why they're going to be under a certain umbrella is also helpful for all the teams to understand.
Totally agree. What about you?
Unfortunately, we don't have time for me to give my remarks. This has been so useful. I think we have a couple more minutes. I'll love to get to more questions if they allow
Quick
for the
answers.
time.
We'll do
Yeah.
quick answers.
Real quick then. Hi, thank you very much. So both of you gave really compelling statements around sales and CS on who should own it. I'm curious if we go one level deeper, if your answers change, if we think about upselling in terms of selling more of what they already have versus cross-selling in, let's say, a multi-product company, and who should take the reins in each one of those scenarios.
Okay. Whoever, like I want to follow the training. Who is best prepared to do that? And so my strategy would be we should enable CS to be really effective at doing that. If that's not the case in an organization, then the CS rep and the CS rep and the rep need to be working hand in hand, almost like the rep and their solutions engineer would. And they need to do it together. But you need to have, like this is why the training piece is so important. Train the CS reps, allow them to do that if they're going through that same training, upsell specific training. If not, partner very close with the rep and they do it together. That's my thought.
Yeah, I think upsell it's natural for it to be part of CS. I mean, if they're just, you're selling them more of what they already have, you can create a lot of just structure around that, how the CSM has that conversation. I think cross-sell, depending on what segment you're selling into, if it's an enterprise customer, that is going to require a lot more work. And then that's where you partner with an AE to make that happen. And you set, again, the plan on who is going to do what, but that's going to require almost like selling into a new entity is like selling into a new customer. If it's a different business unit, you have to find, again, who's going to be that executive sponsor. Yes, you can get the introduction from the CS side, but you have to build out an account plan that requires more time and effort than just the upsell. So a lot of CS teams will start with, you'll be responsible for renewal and upsell, and then figuring out cross-sell typically will start in sales, and then maybe depending on thresholds, the CSM can get involved, and there's a partnership arrangement as long as the compensation makes sense. Not the CS person puts in a lot of the effort, but then the salesperson ends up getting compensated. I've worked at places where the model has been that way until someone raised their hand and said, wait, this is not fair. Our teams are talking, so we need to adjust this and make sure that we're compensating people accordingly for the work that they are doing. But then you have to balance it, because you don't also want to create a CSM role in which they're so focused on the commission aspect and the variable comp that we lose sight of adoption and value delivery.
One more.
Did we have one more?
One more.
Awesome.
Yes.
We'll close with that.
Hi there. Thank you all. This has been a great conversation. I've had the good fortune of working for a company that invested in force management and really put sales, CS, and product and marketing all through that training.
Force
so
management's awesome.
It's fantastic. And I think it gives all those departments a unified language to work from. My question is, and Eleni, you touched upon this a little bit in terms of compensation, but what about can you dig in a little bit more around two things, CSQLs, and incentivizing CS for identifying opportunities with the existing customers and really tracking it in a similar manner that marketing and sales is tracking new business. That's one. Part two is at the front end of a contract, splitting sales compensation so that when they land new business, a portion of that is held until the customer sees value after onboarding.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, we got to go quick. You want to
Yeah.
just take it?
CSQLs, I have not worked at an organization where we've had CSQLs, but that is where a lot of companies will start because naturally, again, the CS team is working with the customer. They're identifying an opportunity and you put that structure in place for them to be able to pass it over to the sales team to work that deal, and then they get credit for it. I've seen that come up as now a more popular option or a way to start, is then you figure out, is that the right model for sales to take it over? But it is a way to easily track and compensate people and to demonstrate as a CS leader, here is the contribution that the team is making to that revenue side of the house. And then your second point, you probably want to comment on that, Chris, but I love that. And also I've seen models where sales also is compensated right for the customer renewing. So keeping a portion of that commission for when they renew so that they're bringing on the ICP.
Yeah, we don't have time, but like, I think it's a great idea. And I know like Mark Roberge, who's CRO of HubSpot, took it from 0 to 100 million. He's big on that too. Because the one thing, a KPI that people don't always pay attention to is churn. And if you can ensure you eliminate churn and then put unique incentives in place, not just to eliminate churn, but to grow it, then that's just going to have an incredible impact on your business. So I think it's a great idea.
Who doesn't pay attention to churn? That's my life. That's what we
Yeah,
live and
exactly.
breathe. Well, thank you. It's been super useful, amazing. Thank both of you for the time, the answers, the effort.
Yes.
And thank you guys for engaging and
Yes,
having
thank
such
you for
amazing
joining.
questions. They're going to be
Thanks.
around for a bit. We're going to be so.
Thank you all so much. Thanks everyone for attending. There's a handful of other CS sessions today for all us CS geeks in the room. Next in this room is going to be Clash of the Bots, implementing AI in post-sales. And then stick around tonight. We do have a closing party this evening. The closing party is tonight at 5 p.m. And that will also include our startup showcase. So if you are an early stage founder, or you are an entrepreneur yourself, I do believe there are still spaces available to sign up for that showcase. You do need to go down in person to the first floor at the welcome desk to sign up for a free table tonight. Awesome. Thank you all so much. Have a great one.
I see what you were doing. No idea what you were doing.
I don't, not on.
Thank you.
Oh, cool.
I'm actually for one. Yes. Absolutely. And recruiter.
Interesting. I love this.
We have working software. We have 30 people that have signed up to test it.
Interesting. I'm gonna come over here. 'Cause that light's in my eye.
And but we're not just focused on developers that allows us to do AI systems very quickly. We have what we call core business functions.
Did you know, sorry, you're kind of at a stage where which business segment, which AI assistants
Yeah, so our first offering is
you should go all in on that.
Oh, I'll come here.
But the technology, generative AI is, it's a game changer. AWS and the AI. So I'm the technical so I know this. This is your thing. Yeah, and we've got it working. And we're having getting people to HR people said how is it finding HR? I reached out, for example, to HR person I would be. She referred me to other people. She referred me to right. So that's how let's make it. Yeah, here's the very next talk. Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, it's starting at 11:30. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Right. In fact, what we've done with this we just as a code generation and able to jumpstart like 5 other business functions. Now, we're lacking specific their placeholders, and so once we figure out what the other thing that's cool about it is everybody's frame of reference. We don't do that as a streamlined workflow. Exactly. And also, it's ours is a more HR side. We like a drop line menu. They put it on and they see the AI skills they don't know what let's say it's registered nurse. They don't know what all they do. They can registered and then the responsibilities and then the qualifications. Generating interview questions. Then the one that's everybody has this thing integrated. Sure. Oh, yes. We have an AI school that allows them to make a job opening. And then have automated evaluation of the job description and the resume. And it's very precise. It gives a scale from 1 to 10. And then explains why and breaks it down into where's the CRO. I'm gonna let you do your yeah. I can throw the other slide back up. Oh yeah. Let me throw the other slide back up. Yeah. And then if you can just and there may be 100 applicants. What do you think?
Good to see you again. I was like, it's all our CS friends are here. And they just put us in a corner room. I'm like, this room needs to be main stage for this stuff. You know? Why are we on the side? In front of it?
What are we doing? Do I do a picture? Oh, where? Here. I'm gonna get out of your way. Is it here? Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah. So I will.
Yes. Are you Jay? I'm Emily. It's nice to meet you. You're not live streaming this one.
Oh, nice. Yeah, absolutely. I'll be around.
And then,
Yeah.
James. Yeah.
Fantastic. What's your name? Oscar. Chris. Nice to meet you. Hi. Yeah. I'm building a sales force. Generally, discuss where it's like actual structure for the standard type of meetings, discovery meeting, demo project meeting other all around. I've done my demo before. Next thing is find out how many notes you get to. Yeah, I have worked out. And every time you You done? Good. I'll see ya.
Chris, thank you so much. Yeah, they're pretty
The one in the morning I wanted to see is like this one is that's what it's pretty solid. It's great fun. Grateful for it. But I think I'm back almost like next you must make sure that through upskilling and training. There's like 46% of the employees that use AI.
I'll just get kicked off and then I'll step out of the way so you guys can use it if you'd like to. We still have another 2 minutes. We'll let people trickle
we build documentation. So like an example is something I built for like a bunch of the speakers here. They have the family, they use their QR code, people are signing up. They don't know who they are, so I built a tool that would research who's signing up based on their name, their email, find out how much the company has raised, where they found this, all that stuff, and you get a response analysis to the person themselves. There's like that was an automation I was building. Basically selling to I don't know if you're interested in
All right, folks, I think we're about to get started here. So if I can just start off by thanking you all for joining. My name is Emily Rogers. I'm head of programming for Startup Boston 2024. And I want to welcome you to the last day of Startup Boston 2024. It's been an awesome week. We've had some really incredible speakers, Jay and Amber here included, and I'm very much looking forward to what they have to offer. This session will be a workshop session. It will be entirely in this room today, so we are not live streaming this virtually. That said, speak up so your peers can hear you and share out your great ideas. Before we move forward, I do want to especially shout out and thank Suffolk University. Suffolk University Sawyer Business School has hosted Startup Boston now for the last 2 years. They are an incredible partner. Not only are they located in this amazing part of the city where we can actually come and all be together, we can join one another, we can access each other's amazing thoughts and ideas and inspiration from one location, but they have truly been a partner in actually putting on this conference. So a big thank you to Suffolk University Sawyer Business School. As you know, if you've been here for the week or you've been here for a few years now, the goal behind Startup Boston Week is to connect the entire greater Boston and New England startup community. So we have folks from all industries, all departments, all levels, all engagements, and different series of funding. Pretty much everything that you could want, you get at Startup Boston Week. And everyone comes together for 5 days of learning and connecting with each other, all in part thanks to also the volunteer crowd that you see walking around today and all week. So if you see those folks, please give them a thank you and a smile. But truthfully, thank you to all of you in the room, our speakers. We could not do this without you. It is a labor of love from all directions, and we're so grateful to be together and celebrating. So thank you for attending Startup Boston Week. And now, without any further ado, I will turn it over to our speakers.
I'll go first. Hi, everyone. My name is Amber. I am a senior customer success manager for a company called Compt. Basically, Compt is an employee benefits platform that helps provide employees with benefits that they really need through stipends, and it kind of fits them at anywhere they are in their life. I've been in customer success for about 10 years now. So before customer success was, I feel like, a job. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Amber. Hi, everyone. Jay Wilson here. This, as mentioned, excited to have a fun, engaging session here on a Friday afternoon. But before we get into that, just a quick intro. So I've been in success in mostly vertical SaaS for the last decade. I'm actually, as mentioned this to some folks, I'm in my last week or so of vacation here before I start a new role at a company called Gym Desk. So excited to spend that time here with y'all. Prior to that, I was in sales and marketing. So I've been on both sides. Of folks were in the last session, which was a great session on owning expansion, sales, customer success. I've been on both sides of that equation. But anyways, that's my quick background. I guess I'll flip it to what we're going to focus on here over the next hour. As we were talking about this session and how do we discuss how AI is being used in customer success, whether that's in implementation or enabling CSMs or improving the support experience, we realized there's so many tools that are out there. We could get up and talk about our opinions, but the best way to do it is to hear from all of us. Everyone here has probably tried some different tool, has done a pilot of something. I myself, I guess I didn't mention in my background, I was at one of those, my last gig was at one of those AI natural language processing companies that was enabling maintenance technicians for residential property. So maybe you've worked for a company like that. So we're going to break out into groups and ask you all to share. We'll get into how we're going to do it, but share what you're using. And as it says here, like and through that collectively talk about what is the role of AI in success? Again, whether that's in different phases of the life cycle of the customer, through implementation, through engagement, expansion, retention, or support. So that's our goal today, is we believe the collective knowledge will be better than any individual knowledge, and we all learn from each other. And I will say it's something we've talked about potentially looking to do is collect all the ideas we get and the tools that we hear that people are using, and then share that out as a resource out of this. So we thank you in advance for you sharing your knowledge and working with each other to do so today. I'll pass it to Amber to talk through how we're going to do that.
Yeah, so basically what we're going to do is kind of split out into groups. We wanted to kind of make sure we have an even mix. How many, by a show of hands, are in customer success right now? Okay, so it's a good chunk and it's spread out. So I think we could probably, yeah. So we could probably break out into groups of, we're going to do about groups of 5. And then we're going to basically, on sticky notes you're going to just write out tools that you currently use that are AI tools, kind of the outcome you get from it. So basically, if you use the tool, like for example, the CRM tool I use is Vitally. And so basically we use that post sales to get customer health scores, have reoccurring things that pop up that kind of remind us like, hey, you haven't spoken to this customer in so long. So that kind of thing. And then how satisfied you are with the tool. So you could be using an AI tool. You might not like it that much. So just kind of giving your opinion on that. So we'll start with that. And then we have a part 2. Do we want to talk through? And then basically, once you come up with all the AI tools you have, just talk about kind of like what outcomes you're all consistently solving with AI, whether it be implementation, anything on that route, and then what tools that your group have found most valuable. And then lastly is if there's any outcomes you wish AI could solve that they're not currently solving. So for example, we talked about like Zoom, there's different things for note taking, and they're not always that great. Like you have this AI tool that kind of takes notes on your Zoom call, but sometimes the notes that you get back aren't really accurate. So just things like that you can think of.
That would be my dream. So we were talking about like, yes, used otter, it's helpful, but for me then how do you parse that information into usable fields within a CRM? So you get your feature requests that we're tracking here, the things that we talked to them about, these modules here. To me, that's where you get real efficiency. So have fun with that. But as Amber mentioned, I think outcomes, as we talk about often in customer success, what are you looking to get from our software? What are you looking to get from these AI tools is really will be interesting to see how we group those together as a team.
And I also would just say sometimes when you think of tools that you might not necessarily think there's AI involved in it, like for example, I use Canva for our customer documents. I was on it and they have an AI tool now that you can just say like, create an image of people jumping in the air over a mountain and they will create the image for you. So just different things you can think of that you didn't think of before that would be considered AI. So, any questions?
So we were thinking again whether I think we have about 30 folks in the room. So like four groups. You said groups, like it'll be 5-6 people, 4 groups. We were thinking we'll get the Post-it notes, so we'll use the 10 minutes. We'll walk around, see if folks need it, where you can jot down what you're currently using, and then we'll break up into those 4 groups. We'll put one group on the wall here, one back there. There's this pillar here, and one here as well. So we'll distribute the materials. But any questions? The prompt here as you're jogging your memory on the tools that you've been using. And yes.
So just I don't know how many people in the room are in my situation. I have very little to share because I came here to go. So,
Yeah.
So if the groups are only 4 people and I'm one of those, that's only 3 people sharing.
We'll have about, so fair point. And I guess what I'd say is something about the tools that you might be using in your day-to-day. For example, for me, the AI search within Google has become really valuable. I don't actually click through many links in Google anymore. I usually, which I've read articles about pros and cons of trusting that, right? But for me, I do find, with I have 2 young kids, if I'm searching something, rather than clicking WebMD links, maybe I'll read the quick, again, dangerous. So maybe there's tools you're using there. As Amber mentioned, a lot of software that you might be using has it now embedded. I know Google has another Google thing, Gemini. If you use CRM, HubSpot now has a searchability tool. So I'm sure there's things you're using, but if there's not much, in this first period for you to jot down, we'll get into those groups of 6 to 8 people. That'll be a great chance for you to learn and riff on that with your peer staff. And then we're going to make sure as we get, after each group has a chance to discuss, we're going to ask to pick somebody from that group to share out so that you'll get to get all the collective learnings.
I mean, we're 23 people here, so groups of 6 works
perfectly.
And is this related to just the customer success piece? You're saying in general, what tools are we using today?
We're focused on post-sales usage of them, but again, if you have a tool that would make people working in a software or tech company more efficient, sure, because it might not be necessarily purpose-built for customer success.
Shall we?
Yeah. Let's roll.
The first, a couple rows get together.
Yeah. All right. Let's just people raise your hand so we can
Distribute yourself.
Yeah. Right. Let's put you in one in each corner.
Very good.
Guys. I mean, we're 23, so if we're 5 people, we're
So it's
12, 18.
Right.
We can bring one of them in talk for this.
So as you jot down your ideas, you can keep them in your hand, or you can start throwing them up on the wall.
Yeah, you can write up tool on one there.
We know it.
Oh, I was just gonna say. It's like, I don't know, I feel like, so many different. I will plan to do that.
So many things. I'm happy to kick off. I just learned about recent stuff. So quick background. I used to make companies. I have a client that uses AI.
I'm impressed with that.
Jot down like the times that we should wrap each session or each portion of like each
No, no, that's all good.
So I had the these left
I think we're sticking on the wall. So
yeah, feel free to just free form right all the tools that come to mind and throw them up and then we'll organize our thoughts.
I run a company in which we help make sure employees don't make stuff with AI. So we help teach how to use AI, we help build tools oriented to AI, or we do other mentoring. On the so, right, so we can try over here. Yeah.
You don't know, right, what's the goal of that?
Was the outcome? Are we writing down on the post-its? Like we're going to.
And then put outcomes you get.
How much spending is done with Gemini?
I mean, not as much.
And I think that's what Jay was saying.
Yeah, these songs as well. We're gonna market, but it's very helpful.
But it's exactly that.
A lot of overlap.
Really good.
Are you in the AI?
Conversation.
It really is.
Depending on how they're.
Did you get a post on us?
Yes. I estimated it so much, but it's part of our.
I like it. Why don't we put the tools and then we can have separate CDs for these? Everyone has
So I came across an interesting blend of tools, like a tool called which is good at but it's internal. So you create like your own private community and then customer service representations and they get answers based on business cash. Real time.
People aren't sending those internal, like, I think what's happening is
I posted main systems not really from building basically everything that
I don't think so. I think they're really,
main has a lot more options. So for example, building for the tool, keeps coming in. Research is living, research is reduce lots of analysis, and so much easier.
It seems, usually it's like,
Not easy. Another really good thing about Make, why I would recommend it, it's like Zapier, right? But you have up to 1,000 automations. And a lot of the code features for Zapier are free with Make. If you want to pay for it, it's similar prices anyways. And it's just a lot more user friendly.
He had answered it. And I apologize.
Yeah,
But,
I've heard of this.
I was like, we have answered it. You're not doing that first.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Just focus that. So it's one of those things where I just work
Usually overlooked.
Yeah.
But yeah,
yeah, I think they're gonna report out.
there's another, note taker.
I
played around with you one thing is cool.
Sure.
Things that I would say you.
Yeah, I mean.
You know, like.
I
feel like that's like
You wouldn't do that directly.
Right.
companies, right? Like where you're not like startups, not the enterprise yet.
Yeah.
Our systems are off, like everything's off.
So when I was doing it like that, but like
having said this.
AI has just come out. We were adapting to the concept of letting AI take over simple answers and just then our CEO was like, so I never let AI directly
Like
by someone
to
human being. What we used to do was, any question comes up, we would have to say, so we would ask questions, we would ask our insights, any customer would ask us, we would do that, face with the AI.
Yes. So I was wondering, I mean, I
So we just have to
one of our products is something that's quite sensitive, with young The thing about subject like unlike copying like PDFs on AI, like Otter or chat from a lot of these tools can do spin up professionally without needing to pay them. Especially for a lot of the so if you do the pump yourself, like you can set it up with a custom upload
And they try to do the same thing.
file. If you do that, you can check the box, and by training data for so your training data, your whatever information you're uploading, stays in the that's good throughout. So there's really a whole
Saturday questions.
But they did say,
there's a lot of progressive.
All right. Reference, do you want to do this? Okay.
I'd like to discuss one thing, because if there's a need for everyone to
We'll do that
hour-long video, give you the highlights, whatever.
Hey everyone, if I could get your attention real quick. Sorry to interrupt the good conversations. It's awesome. Everyone's in a very collaborative spirit, which is great to see. Just in terms of shifting us into the next phase, which because we want everyone to get a chance to hear what the other groups are talking about, we're going to ask you to now take, I know all of you have already kind of started doing this, but take the next 10 or so minutes. First up, it might be helpful if you want to pick somebody that's going to share out from your group. And then the key things we'd like to hear from each group is like, are there any themes, and they're up here, but are there any themes and outcomes that you're looking to solve? As we've talked about, like I see this group has already grouped up by content generation and note-taking. So are there any common themes or pain points or efficiencies you're looking to gain? And then within those, are there specific tools that have been really valuable? Or if you've got something that's not met the hype, that might be interesting too, but what specific tools do you want to call out? And then this was kind of like a bonus one, but is there anything you all have talked about? I mentioned earlier, like taking note-taking and making it more effective at parsing out notes with something. Is there anything you all wish you had to help your customer success team be more efficient? So those three things: outcomes, specific tools within them, and if you all talked about anything that's missing, great. So pick one person, take the next 10 minutes or so to think about, what are the themes we saw as you look at your Post-it notes, and then we'll get together and we'll share out from each group. Awesome. Any questions?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can we get your connections?
Yeah.
Some products by acronyms, and I could just be like on the call.
Alright, so we have a bunch of post-its. I know we have to do this like ChatGPT. So let's consolidate that. So we Alright, so since we need to come up with outcomes, you guys, this is your bread and butter. You guys want to do $6 or something?
Whatever the outcomes are.
Yeah,
You want to categorize it as the same outcomes and then your
Two kids for 4 days. You mentioned creation. So that's what it's like ground from like the ball and something.
For most of our conversations, they realize that I'm not just taking yeah, so what it does is, for a simple 5-minute video, like I put this so yeah, that's awesome. Right? So you can basically make a video of yourself and sort of say, okay, I sort of want to do something like that. And then also have a different background based on whatever the
Why not? With yours, about a new feature or right? You make that really quickly.
I mean, I can talk to you, but
Along those lines.
you want to go for it?
Do you think like 12 or 10 to give them 20 minutes to share out?
It's like 5 minutes per group, because not only like they won't take that long to share, but I bet if some of it like questions from other people, it really ask follow-up questions.
Honestly, from that is also because diagrams. It's used in generating diagrams experience. Copy AI is only by activity.
No.
This writing. That's the part parts. Gently. So let's drop that down there. And we have storyboard AI, which is storyboards. We're just going to. Storyboard?
Yeah, that's
Okay. Is it graphical tool? Because there's like graphical ones here. There's this. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Okay. So I put some things that are, I put cursor, which is nifty when you're looking at speeding up coding. It's not necessarily kind of like in terms of building solutions, that's useful. And then we have analytics. I built coffee.ai for productivity. So should we group that up with yeah.
They literally laid off an entire customer service.
Well, that was Clary.
No, funny. Something like that. I asked. There you go.
List the same like.
So I am so skeptical of them. Like I don't know, I have no doubt that they did. Right, but it's not.
This is also kind of generation tools we can make with interest in terms of building tools. Things that if you want to build tools,
So much like,
together.
I really wonder about building the customer experience. There's so much money, but like.
Honestly, copy would be with
Everyone wants mine about it.
yeah. Well, checks would be
Right now?
I mean, like,
Talk to me.
terrible experience. Yeah. And then we have games,
That was being
So, we made the tool recently, curious about beginning we need the tool you upload and it generates sports stuff, accessibility, installation, troubleshooting, so it's like if your Android 10 versus Android 11, you have an answer for that. And you can use it to make stuff to you.
I don't want to come off
Can they even? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, sure, let's do this plan. I feel like we're all
Hello?
this, but I run
Oh, so what do you need to share? You guys, is everyone ready to share?
Me too, that's why I was like, you're not gonna do
Are you all ready to share? We're gonna come back to the big room.
I guess.
I don't think we're
Do you want me to show you?
You are.
All right.
Now, let me show you.
Who wants to be our, sorry to interrupt again. Getting to practice my soccer coaching voice. Are you all ready to, who wants to be our first sharer? And we'll make it engaging. You want to go first? Thank you.
Hello?
If you need to go off the notes, you can go up front. You can stay right there.
All right, hey guys. So our team was kind of a hodgepodge of, students, founders, and one customer success person. So we'll probably have a little bit of different AI tools than you guys use, but a lot of our tooling kind of centered around ChatGPT and Gemini for, content generation, refining emails, even using things like Gemini and how it kind of ties into Gmail to create email drafts when you're following up with customers. Some transcription tools like Gong and Zoom RA were also kind of things that we were discussing. That way, you kind of you can multitask during those meetings. I think those were basically the two main topics we were kind of discussing. So thanks. Oh, the Amazon Q. So the Amazon Q was, what was that one again?
Allow you to tap into multiple data sources and you can interact with it like a chatbot.
Okay, right. So it's almost like a chatbot that kind of ties into different kind of data sources that can aggregate data for you, that can then allow you to make, or allow companies to make informed decisions about that data. So kind of improved searchability, I guess, is what I was understanding. So that was pretty much, I think that was all of them. Oh, thank you guys. And I'm also really bad at public speaking, so thanks for bearing with me.
What was the Amazon tool specific?
It was called Amazon Q. I believe it's like a new generative AI tool that just basically allows companies to plug it into something like a Zendesk or a Zendesk.
You can plug into Zendesk, you can plug into a mailbox, or you can plug it into like a Jira. And it's like, hey, what are the open tickets? And you kind of go and say like, hey, this is this, and I talk to it. Or you can use it you can plug it to a database and try to query it and get insight from the data straight away.
So anywhere where there's just like a lot of big amounts of data, emails, anywhere where it's really difficult. I don't know if any of you have ever worked for a support team where you're kind of trying to find a proper ticket. If you don't use the exact word, it won't pull up that ticket. So I think it's designed to kind of address some of those issues.
That's great. That's great. If I may ask, and I encourage folks, again, if you have questions of any group, feel free if you have a question on a specific tool. I'd be curious to this group because there was a good mix of founders, right? Founder students. One of the things I forgot to mention in my lead up, but I'd be curious if you all talked about how you evaluate and justify these tools from a cost perspective, if there is a cost perspective. So from a founder lens, any thoughts from folks there in terms of how you think about adding a tool and how you think about ROI of the tool and whether it's something, especially if budgets are tight, that you're going to be willing to invest in?
I don't think so. Some of the tools that we've actually used are free. ChatGPT is free. Gemini is free. So I think something like Amazon Q is something a customer would end up paying for, right? Like we wouldn't be using that to kind of search our own data at a specific point, especially at at an incubation stage with a small company. You hopefully don't have thousands of tickets, right? You need to search. So I don't know if anyone else has any kind of information.
Yeah, in terms of things that I would pay for, I would say that stuff that will save me time, save me bandwidth, anything that will do that for a busy day, I would pay for. So I know ChatGPT, the paid version, is something I pay for. It can plug into multiple different things. Like I have an auto replier, an auto drafter for my email for customer success emails. So that saves me a ton of time throughout the day. It already creates a draft, just go and change a few things. That's something I'm totally going to pay for. So I think it's more about my bandwidth, I guess.
Yep, that's great. Thank you for sharing.
Do you want to pick who you want to go next?
I'm not that mean, so whoever wants to step up. Do you want to go next? All right. Okay. All right. Well, there you go.
It is on, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, you got to speak closely. Hey everyone, I'm Rob Zambito. I am a customer success consultant working with a bunch of early stage startups, a lot of times helping them implement different AI tools at their organizations. So shout out to my fellow consultants in the room. I see you guys. So what we did, we actually organized different use cases for AI with a bunch of different tools. So like if you're looking for general tools, there's tools like Google Gemini or ChatGPT, analytics tools, productivity tools, conversational intelligence tools, image generation, which is really good for memes if you ever need. And then other, we didn't really have a bucket for those. And so the outcomes kind of depend on the category. So if you're looking for example, productivity tools, there's a tool called The Gist, which I really like because what it can do is read your really busy Slack channels and give you like a daily digest of like, here's what happened in that channel in a nutshell. And for me, like it's so much easier to read the TLDR and then go back and look for the details that I need instead of just like having to read through all this, junk that can be in the channel. So there's other cool, interesting applications too for Glean. Actually, did you want to share a little bit about Glean? There was a tool called Glean that everybody likes.
Yeah, so Glean, my organization uses Glean. It basically searches everything that we have in our organization. So it'll search your SharePoints, your Slack channels, all of those different places that information might be stored. So for me, especially when I was onboarding and someone would mention something either about the industry that I didn't know or about our products or anything, I could just say, what is this at Axon? And it will give me the summary and it'll also give me the links to all the different documents that mention it. So it'll also search Zendesk, like it's connected to everything on our org.
Cool. And any outcomes that we wish AI could solve that it doesn't currently. It's not a great therapist for me yet, but it's getting there. And then we also talked a bit about just how we could better leverage AI to represent our tone, which Sagar has some solutions for that, evidently, that I'm waiting to hear about.
I'm not here to sell myself as much.
I'm just saying, but yeah, I think I don't know if you guys see this too, but like whenever I log into like LinkedIn or something, you can kind of see when things are written by AI. You can kind of tell, but it's really cool if you can develop your prompts to match your tone. Those are some of the main things we came up with.
You each also had unique tools. Is it right if we pass it off? Because this was really nice in which you explained your favorite tool that was unique from everyone else, and so did you. Do you have any ones that you would like to bring up?
I can talk about a gist of tools. Hi, so I come a little bit more from the product side of the house. So a huge part of, as we're trying to figure out how to accelerate going from here's some ideas that customers had into trying to especially get buy-in from founders and from people who you have to sell to in order to get your idea going. A lot of it is that there's a lot of time, especially in the UX side of the house, wasted trying to figure out how to explain things. So things like storyboard or AI and stuff like that, essentially the ability to create lower fidelity, although it's kind of it's a little weird because you're trying to create a low fidelity to say that there's more room to grow. But then when you go and create these images, obviously AI likes to build high fidelity items. So it makes it look a little bit more refined than maybe it should, especially with, as everybody here who's used design stuff knows, that there's extra hands, there's weird sentiment that's lost. So it's not good when you're trying to finalize your design, but it's great to quickly bang out something within 10, 15 minutes to say, this is a story I'm trying to tell. And visually, people like to read cartoons, right? Like it's an easy way to go through 6 boxes. I get what you're trying to do. So things like that really have helped out.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark. I work in marketing, so I had a slightly different lens on this, but one tool that's really helpful for us that's in the conversational intelligence space is Gong. So that's a tool that's primarily built for sales teams, but because we like to ingest what the sales teams are talking about, it's really helpful for me to have alerts of like when, like keyword matching essentially. So if a sales rep or one of our prospects or even existing customers brings up a competitor, I can get an alert about that. If a sales team member mentions like, oh, we'll deliver this new slide deck to you, I can get an alert for that ahead of time. Things like little advanced notices like that is really helpful, but also to be able to go and search all of our past conversations and see like, I think someone talked about this problem that they were trying to solve, but where was that and who was it with? And we can pull out the transcript and conversation from that and turn it into content or at least have that answer. And we also use a tool called copy.ai, which is a similar, I'm sure there's like ChatGPT, things that sit on top of ChatGPT that are pretty similar, but it is tool specifically for marketing that has workflows like you put in all of your marketing documentation and you teach it your tone of voice like you would with ChatGPT, but then there's pre-existing workflows like we are trying to be recognized for this new category or this new keyword. So type in the keyword, it spits out a bunch of like a process for setting up an SEO strategy for that keyword. It helps you with like starter content that obviously you need to edit and update and stuff, but it's kind of built for marketing teams and it's really helpful that way. Anyone else? Yeah. How about this group?
We're running out of time. Yeah.
Okay. So my name's Ozzy. I'm glad to be here. It's a networking opportunity for me today. I come here with experience from IBM and the Weather Company, currently exploring new opportunities, and so glad for this session here. So many things were discussed, and people on my team can remind me, but we had several of the tools that were already mentioned, including Gong, Copy AI, Perplexity, One is for source validation, being able to know you don't just get the information and, ChatGPT may tell you something, but you don't always get the source and you get two different pieces of information. Perplexity, on the other hand, gives you sources so you can validate. Gemini AI is good for being able to synthesize videos, going in there and saying, give me a quick summary of this hour-long video, because they own YouTube, so they can, have access to most of the public videos. The other ones, let's see, we had Gong, Lexigo for image generation, SendSpark for personalized video outreach. That was one thing. Like, you can also do tone sentiment if you have communication going on with your customers, and sometimes, you have an angry customer, you need to be able to get back to them and figure out the best way to do that. So we had product feedback, customer specialist, the knowledge base, being able to build that up and save on productivity, not go there and do something that's inefficient. We already mentioned ChatGPT, Perplexity. What's the other one? Too short. Note-taking for workflow, Microsoft Copilot, Mixmax. Somebody remind me, what was that for?
It's like a sales communication tool.
Sales.
It has like text suggestions.
And then we have text suggestion. What else did we have for some reason? Source validation, internal. Oh, troubleshooting as well. So I've noticed working in IBM, you have customer support teams. You need to be able to work with them to help understand and troubleshoot issues. You have a team, you have an interface. Your mobile interface for your application, if the user sees something goes wrong, they have no idea that it might be an issue in the back end. The back end team is working on it. We're not pointing fingers, but the team working with you to support you needs to be able to figure out, how do I get to the right answer in troubleshooting? Where did the issue come from? So these were just some samples. Did I miss anything?
What's the tool?
We were working with Watson AI. So IBM is very specific about using their own technologies and not using anything else. So we were exploring that for this.
Great. If I may, we'll give it 6 minutes. You mentioned product feedback.
Yeah.
Either you or anyone else. Has anyone used any of these tools to really create a strong voice of customer program with product to make sure you have quantifiable data? And if so, what's worked there?
Yeah. So just quickly on that, being able to use, in this case, the example with Gong, some sort of note-taking app, right? If you're on the phone or the video of the customer, getting all sorts of feedback, being able to then either search the video or search the transcript of the specific places where the customer was mentioning their feedback, so that you can either then input that into your voice of the customer system, so you understand how many times these sort of issues are coming up, the value of the customers, et cetera. And then the other part of that worked really well for me when working with products, sort of hitting with the 1-2 punch. On one hand, you have the data, you have all that stuff you give to your product team, and then using that clip within Gong or whatever other video tool that you have to have the customer. I think that sometimes as customer success people, we forget the power that hearing directly from the customer and what that visceral feedback really feels like. So being able to pair that clip of the customer saying it, and you hear the emotion in the voice, and being able to send that to the product team, it makes the data land in a way that it wouldn't necessarily. So
That's awesome. Thank you, Sharon.
Hey everyone, on our team we had a great mix from students, a couple of customer success people, marketing, entrepreneur, and sales. So lots of different perspectives. Everybody's mentioned a lot of the things we talked about. One thing that we talked about, which wasn't AI specifically, but the new customer onboarding process and opportunities that could support that. One tool that was mentioned, what is the name of your tool? Sero, thank you. SERO is a tool that's really helped reduce new client onboarding time significantly. I looked at a sales pitch yesterday from a company called DOCK, that looked good, I don't know. So that was an area I think there's a lot of opportunity to support. We talked a lot about ChatGPT. A lot of us are using it in different ways, but one of the things we talked about is how many ways we're not using it, that there's so many things you have to think of that you could do. So we're using it a couple of us are using it for spreadsheets, help with writing formulas, and also actually, when I remember, analyzing the actual spreadsheets and pulling the data out for us. I mean, that's really important when you're doing data analysis and customer success. Everybody talked about note-taking. I've been using Zoom AI. It's terrible. I will not be using that. It just tells. And it's not even the action items. It's like it says we talked about this, and it's like, yeah, that is not what we were talking about. I could get fired. But we have a team of financial planners, and our certified financial planners use a tool called Chorus that does note taking, and they really, really like it. And I think our sales team uses it as well. Somehow it hasn't made it to customer success yet, but I think it should. So we're working on that. And then we talked a little bit about CRM and support and chat and things like that, and how we're all doing the most we can with the least money possible, because we're at a startup conference, and yes, we are startups. So that was one that was mentioned. There's a website called there'sanaIforthat.com. And it can help you figure out what tool to use for what project, what thing you're trying to do, whether it's creating images or content or things like that. We also learned about sticky notes and ways to get them to stay on the wall. Apparently, this isn't it. If you pull the sticky note up from the top like most of us do, it does that. But apparently, if you kind of pull it and move it from the side, more of the glue stays on or something, and we recommend that for the future. Yes.
I was just wondering if anybody's used any chatbots that are customer facing that you've been impressed by versus wanted to throw your computer through the screen.
Crisp is great. It's really great for sales reps to be able to jump in at any point. It's really affordable for startups. It's $100 flat, regardless of the size per month. They do a really good starter thing of like 15 days. It's a French company. 7 people run it. They've been at it for like a few years now, and it's a solid competitor to Drift and Intercom and the rest of the same, like a lot of the same features and everything else. They just really want to go with affordability and accessibility for everyone.
Great.
Can you get a spelling? Because you just can't trust your
Yeah, sure. It's called Crisp. Like it's a crisp apple.
So it is.
CRISP. And then Phantom. Phantom was mentioned as well, and then many things that all of you have mentioned. Anything else from the team? Awesome. Thank you.
All right, I guess we're right on time.
What's the best way to get?
So we want to create a worksheet with kind of the different AI tools we have here. What's the best way to get this to the group?
We got everyone that's registered for this session, we have their email, right? So maybe
I will follow up with you on that. We'll figure it out.
We'll make sure we get something together, post it on LinkedIn, and I think that was for me one of the greatest parts of the session. I saw so many people trading contact info, so hopefully you got that out of it. We'll post it there. We'll find a way to try and email it out as well.
How about we real quick, everyone puts it on the table here, and if people want to take a picture, they can take a picture of the table.
Of the
or just so you can rotate around.
Yeah. I mean, they're following. So.
Yeah. If you want to, I'm going to go around and take some
Yeah, there's
pictures as
nothing.
well, make sure we get all that. But feel free to do that. Stick around, take down a list. We'll do it for you as well. We'll find a way to get to it.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much. This has been awesome. Thank you all for attending and for being part of Startup Boston Week. If you do want to take photos in this room, we don't have anything in here until 1:15, so there is a little bit of wiggle room in here to mingle and mix. At 1:15, we have Tech Touch Chess, Scaling with Consistency. So definitely stick around for the day for all your CS content. And thank you so much for being here. And then hopefully see you all at the closing party tonight. 5 p.m. There'll be a closing party. and a startup showcase. So if you are a founder, if you do want to highlight your startup, I believe there's still spots available. You do have to sign up. Awesome. Dan says there are. You have to sign up in person on the first floor at the welcome desk if you want a free table for the startup showcase tonight. Thank you all so much. Have a good one.
Thank you all for your participation.
I'm going. Yeah. You're in the work with larger companies. Yeah, we've been at this for like 2 years.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what you're saying. I think our strategy, I think
we do voice recording. So another product is so it's a voice call hey, your dress is for whatever reason you're asking your customer.
Yeah, so that's right, like our.
This is another one. Image generation.
Right. The challenge is that we haven't just like a so then you.
Sure.
Yeah, that's good.
Sounds like a card room.
Yeah, this is just like copies of the alternate strategy. They use the same I have another tool anyway, such as cursor for coding, making automations.
I know. Yeah.
It's great to be here.
Good luck. Walking on the street, you see like banners, you have concepts, takeaway items, so it means yeah. There's something to say about
Yeah, we have to like look at categories of security, image generation, general tools, conversational intelligence, note taking would probably be a general tool. Otter, so like you can stack them if they're like duplicates, like bomb over here, ChatGPT. Yes. Canva would be image is note taking, note taking over here. Zoom AI is don't like it. They say they don't like it. I don't know what this is. Marketing, so we have a category for search analytics. I guess. So, thank you. Sorry about that. So, your biggest pain point is the, what was it? The notes
so much about
yeah.
So you don't even have to go through them. All right. So what time is the presentation?
The last one.
Yeah. Send me a message.
Most of them are just a panel.
Yeah. So this one will be this one.
Yeah. So I was like, there were problems that they were talking about.
Perfect.
It's like,
I'll leave that up.
If
Just hit slideshow.
and it will just be on the full screen. Okay, great.
And then for the present, then you can escape. And for the presentation,
They have
you'll hit
clicker, right?
slideshow, but yeah, the clicker is right there. Yep.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
This is yours.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's the reason I do that is because I'm trying to set up these candidates, right? So give me your QR code. So the reason I'm doing that is because the polls So you need to turn on the following mode, the influence mode thing, because the difference is you get additional features like newsletter, additional benefits, and there's nothing wrong with it. Not really. But yeah, so it's like a lot of the solutions we make either making capturing voices with more experience. 10 years of experience in sales, so you can translate that into 10 years of experience or 10 years of experience in sales. Another tool is like something I was building for upstairs all throughout this week is leads coming in, researching. You have the name, first name, last name, you have their company, researching who they are. So you it's type of researching. There was another tool I mentioned. We built a tool which just generates infinite articles, supports documents based off of like 12 different criteria. So accessibility, opportunity, all sorts of things, which you then upload to your entrance on. So then it's like chatbot can solve it just with those other things.
Tell me more.
I run a team of 6. We're 4 fish. We're in educational. Up until August, we were mostly educational platforms. We built tools for clients, so like Johnson Johnson, Massachusetts. So we work with enterprises to individuals. We want help. We want
customer success team.
Our customers are mostly employees. So you want to be more efficient. You want to learn how to use AI better. We'll help train you to lead these sit-down session.
Exactly. So that's what we.
That's
the
my name is. What is it? I don't know.
It's still
But
so they don't swap it. So they use the plastic one. They don't even
Stuff like that.
I'm always open to learning more.
Well, here, how about let's give you something useful as a takeaway. I also call them so they can tell you this on behalf of me. Do you use age when you do a prompt?
Exactly. And then when you arrive, you age of the customer,
the prompt is
that's
also.
what part of the university.
If you're using AI, use an age.
Yeah, so that's the. So I wish we didn't.
So you using more.
So AI will pretend that it's smarter than it is, whatever.
So
there's a few research papers we published about that. There's a few research papers in which you ask it to pretend to be a 2-year-old, and then it's the pertinence of a 2-year-old. If you ask it like to behave like a 5-year-old, it will act like a 5-year-old. So in this case, instead of using things like you're a world-class blogger, it's better to say you have 30 years of experience in this field, because then you're expecting an answer of someone who has 30 years of experience. Without that, you have a range of it could be someone relatively new versus someone relatively old. Exactly. And if it's in a field that's new, for instance, it's been out for 5 years, and you're saying, oh, you have 40 years of experience in this. It's not going to stretch out the 5 years of experience and I feel like even 40 years. It's instead going to like the 35 years that build up to that point. And then the 5 years that it displays a level of experiences. Yeah. So when you do a promise like you're a customer success manager with 30 years of experience, that answer is going to be very different from like you're a customer success manager. So yeah. So
as I mentioned, I'll be starting a new game in a week.
Yeah. Well, definitely reach out because definitely reach out. And when you settle down a bit more, it's like, I'll send you a calendar, like, when you settle down a little bit more, it's fun to talk. And like, we can definitely help out. Like, a lot of the problems that everyone is talking about in this room, we can definitely use, either we can help you solve them. Or you can solve them.
Is this touchscreen? It's not a touchscreen. Oh.
Great talking to you too.
Be in touch.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you again for all your participation.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. Do you want to connect?
I wanted
Did
to
we
ask if I
connect?
could connect with you on LinkedIn.
So I connected with Jay. Do you want to take my phone?
In the job market?
Yes. Or I
And
can
then-
scan your thing.
So do you know? Yeah. And then let's go. Can you give me your QR code?
In going through the job search process all the summer.
Oh, yeah?
So we go here. And we're in home screen. Click here. Yeah, the QR code up there. And yours, and then that way it's like a guaranteed connection. So going back and forth.
I really appreciate, I have to say, first of all, God bless you.
Yes.
Everyone who said these events, something because they were so.
Yeah, I kind of just like how we do this. So it's catch up, I think, or I think, let me check.
No, I think yeah, but overall, I mean, you do a great job. The fact that you take time to do this and help others.
Yes,
and
results.
like I said,
So
I'm in this
1,
position,
2, 3,
you have other
4.
people from the startups or whatever, because I think any system you go to, you have something to take out of it, regardless of what you're.
And then, sorry,
so
let me
anyway.
message it to you. What was your name?
Yeah. Speaking of that, what other events are you aware of that might be useful?
In our retail, what's your focus?
It's so funny how
My focus,
they think they're being helpful by giving you
to make it short, I've got a background in software engineering management,
Yeah.
reassurance,
Yes.
de facto product management. I work closely with customer success, but because I've got that experience from all angles, all perspectives, I'm able to use it to my benefit. So in my last.
So yeah, the thing that I mentioned, the style tool.
Normally you don't have someone from.
So we do it, so
Going down, but they knew I do demos so well and I work.
do you know,
with them,
have you
so
met
I know
Ivy?
exactly what they're talking about. You
She
have
was
to
talking
ask
about
them,
teaching,
make
talking
sure
about what
she's
she
on
does
the
with the
call,
resume writing and stuff like
Yeah.
that. We both do that, right?
Exactly, so
And
so
we
that's
use
why I'm
the
looking
style
to
tools,
see if
grab
I
her
can
writing style,
learn
stuff like
something in a
that.
similar area.
So that
Like,
way
if I'm
her
software
output
engineer, I still want to be able to do
is
that.
putting it in with form,
Or with Partment. So
analyzing
it's
it
easier
with
to
her
talk it
language,
out to someone
reducing
versus
her
on
work,
paper where it's
and
like,
bringing out
look at her, she's
a
scattered
resume
all
set.
over the place.
So
Yeah,
far,
not-
all
yeah,
of her plans
yeah.
are very happy with. And unofficially, she's used that tool to gain that certification.
That's awesome. Job search.
Exactly.
What are those?
Yeah, yeah,
called,
exactly,
right?
yeah.
No,
You'll see
sure.
sales engineer.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's like should make more money, it's a better case study.
Maybe have some sort of.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But
That's what I was just thinking, like,
But yeah, if you want
make stuff,
to.
No, I agree.
Oh yeah, honestly, 110%. Like networking is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's.
Well, yeah, if you're not in the larger cities and you're in a small one, you can't network out, especially because there's so much spam with AI generated papers, resumes. So like before, it was like 90% of the resume jobs you get is networking, 10% is online applications because resume recruiters are so spam.
No, I appreciate it.
Which then also affects
Absolutely.
how homogeneous like if you're
So
trying
for
to
me, it's,
sort
people think that, oh, because I was with IBM or whatever, I'm looking for one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice, you know, that they have some stability, but at the same time,
I did, yeah.
there's a startup company
I
that
just,
has promising potential.
Reopen closed tab.
It's nice meeting you.
Especially right now with the
And
tight market,
also
I'm
then,
not in a real
yeah, definitely.
position to say,
I'll
oh,
be pitching
I don't want to work in this
so
company or that company.
later.
I'd rather be able to expand on my role, gain better experience that I can later use somewhere else in my business.
Higher quality before you.
Of course, exactly.
Me too.
Yeah.
Take a picture of that, so it's their photo, you can send an issue with, sorry. We have resumes.
Thank you.
They're.
Oh.
I think they'll help, she's one of those.
It's better to come to that conclusion.
Thanks for pulling us into this.
Yeah, I was just. You got her in?
Okay, I took a picture, yes.
Me, but then Amber and I were talking.
I don't know if I was gonna be there. Yeah, same here, Tiger, and I'm like, same here, Tiger, I'm on.
We canceled the wedding so that we can have a hackathon.
Yeah. Oh,
They did cancel the wedding.
Yeah.
It is the best.
Yeah, better find out now, I guess.
See you. Yeah, let's grab a. I don't know if I can.
I know, which side is yours? Wait, are we trying to get this in?
Let me go on this side, because then I
Yeah.
can,
Reach sometimes you have
and get the thing right.
workout. We have a really.
Alright, cool. Awesome, nice to meet you guys.
Yeah.
That was really fun. I really enjoyed that.
Derek.
That like took up more than I expected.
I know, right?
We didn't have to look at 10 minutes away.
Yeah,
that was fine.
And all volunteer organized.
Everyone's volunteer. Let's start off.
Yeah, and the whole thing is sponsored. So that's why it's free.
Yeah.
Which is unheard of.
Because I feel like they could charge it.
Or maybe they'll just keep the free thing going. I don't know.
It takes a lot. There's a lot of volunteers for it to find that.
Yeah. But because of that, it's sometimes hard to track down answers to questions like, can we get swag? Because it's like everyone.
It's probably a pretty unique question.
Yeah, right. What are we gonna do with all these?
Collect them.
Did you get any pictures?
I took some pictures, but
Take them with us.
sometimes, yeah.
Take some pictures of the groupings.
Yeah.
Great.
So your next gig starts next week.
Week from Monday.
Sweet.
Gonna go
How are you
down
feeling?
and